Jason Gholston. I'm the head of Sansar Studios and the director of business development on the project. I've been on the project for the last 5.5 years, the previous 5 years as the director of product. So I kind of worked on all different types of stuff in regards to Sansar, which is Linden Labs' follow-up to Second Life, which is, I don't know if you guys have heard of Second Life, but it's kind of the granddaddy or the progenitor of a whole lot of virtual world stuff. Second Life is still going strong, very profitable, just shy of 1 million monthly active users. Last year alone, we paid out $60 million to our community of creators in user-to-user, them cashing money out of the economy. And within the Second Life economy, there's still over 600 million US dollars bouncing around within it. So it's still going good. And so we looked at this coming VR kind of revolution, and Second Life's frame rates are like 20 frames a second. And so we're like, hey, we got to do something. So we decided to start building Sansar a few years, 5.5 years ago. Anyway, so what I'm going to be talking about today is social VR. Sansar is a social VR platform, and how that's going to affect a couple, handful of different industries. Pretty much you name them, it's going to have an impact. And how and I'm doing this all kind of through the lens of Sansar, as that's where my head's been at for a while now. So I apologize if it seems myopic, but anyway. So what is social VR? It's a presence, just like typical VR, but it's a sense of presence with other people, right? So it feels like you're there with other people without the boundaries of the physical world. And we say the fact that it's a simulated world, there's agency there. It's interactive. It goes beyond 360 video types of VR applications, which are so common. Like, people conflate 360 video with VR. And if VR has agency, 360 video is another video format, So and with that comes power. You can do anything, anywhere, with anybody, pretty much. And what's really interesting is when you have these spaces, humans, people start to, they behave the way they would in real spaces, and they do what they do. They do human things. And it's not social VR in the sense of like Facebook is social or Twitter is social, It's not just telling something. You are actually experiencing it together. It is a shared experience as opposed to a share, like I'm sharing this thing, And so how do you get that sense of social presence, In the case of Sansar, we use a number of technologies to really give some life and vigor to the avatars. So, for instance, our facial animations are powered, through machine learning and driven by voice. So what's really great about that is every headset has a microphone built into it. You speak. That audio is processed through the machine learning through that system, and then very realistic, completely anatomically accurate facial animations occur, not just lip sync, but nonverbal cues as well. We also pick up info from the motion controllers, from the head, how the body is moving in physical space, feed that through IK solvers, and pretty soon other kinds of body simulations. And this is all really key because it helps to create, a sense that you're talking to a real person on the other end, that there's a real person driving that avatar. And through that, comes a connection. And ultimately, social VR is a tool, and tools should make jobs easier. And if you have the right tool for the job, it should ultimately be fun. And social VR is a very powerful tool. and is ready to make changes to, pretty much name the industry, but I'm going to talk about education, meetings, design, and retail, because these are areas, these are industries where collaboration, which gets to the bigger theme of collaboration, are really important. And so in education, I was just speaking about the systems we use to give the avatars life. That's really important when you're an educator. You're trying to make that one-on-one connection with a student. You're trying to make that connection to a crowd. So within Sansar, we can do really fantastic one-on-one interactions, but we can also do one-to-many. Right now, we support 40 avatars in a single space, and then with unlimited instancing of that space. And soon we'll be having avatar broadcasting, whereby a group of avatars can be present across all those instances, thus allowing them to address audiences of thousands. In an educational context, the social VR, the VR piece of it also, it helps focus. It literally blocks out distraction. You can create environments that are optimized for education, for the material that you're trying to teach. And because it's so physical, or it can be, and it engages the senses in a very kind of all-consuming sort of way, it does hit on all kinds of learning styles. So you are able to, through social VR and through Sansar, create experiences, create spaces that, really hit on all the modes, the learning modalities. And this event can be very effective, especially when you're talking about not just your regular students, but special ed students, incarcerated students. Just that flexibility of being able to get those students into spaces optimized for their particular learning way they learn. And so this is a space here. This is the Apollo Mission Museum. We put this together in collaboration with the team at Loot Interactive. I produced this project and provided direction. And what's really fantastic about this is a completely fictional, made-up place, but really designed to show the scale, show the, just kind of the epic nature of these machines. So you have a full-scale Saturn V. You'll notice the red line, down there down in the lower right, there's a moon. That red line traces the trajectory of the Apollo 11 on its way to the moon, and that all happens in scale. And once you get to the moon, you actually can be teleported to the landing site on the Sea of Tranquility. And along the way, along that route, you're hearing the audio from mission control back and forth between the astronauts, so you get a real sense of what happened. And there's a gallery space in there as well, where you can learn about each of the mission crews and what the objective for the mission was. And all this is just, there's reading, there's audio, there's spatial, there's embedded video in the space. And there's a lot of content in there, and you can choose, it's self-guided, or you can pace it out however you wish. But it has a real sense of awe. Now, we also, that guided notion, or that time with expert, is really important. So because it's social, because we can have so many users in the same space at the same time, we can have people in there together. So here's a screenshot from an event we held a little while ago, just a couple weeks ago. It's a virtual travel guided tour event. So we had we've been working with this Egyptologist. He teaches at the Sorbonne, and he guided this tour. He was in France. We had people from our user base log in from around the world. They met Philippe in our virtual headquarters for this travel experience, where he then guided them to scenes, various Egyptian heritage sites that had been laser scanned, so they're LiDAR and photogrammetry. And so I'm going to play for you a little video here. Hopefully it works.
You're the first audience to join us for this, which is a live visit to a virtual Egypt.
It's connected to the island.
The places we're about to go together are off limits to the public.
something that has been made and that belongs to the god. And you can even see at the level of the legs, we have remnants of the images of children. Color brings magical life to the monument.
This tomb chapel of an ancient Egyptian priest called Naktamun.
This way, you can actually access the space and the decoration without any risk of hurting the monument.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing.
So for that event, the Voyage Live Egypt event, scheduled for an hour, 30 some odd people showed up in Sansar, some of them in desktop mode. We support desktop mode. A lot of them in VR. It was scheduled for an hour. And it was interesting during rehearsals, Philippe, he would go to the Ramesseum, where we have one wall captured, all the reliefs. And he could not get his speech down for the Ramesseum below an hour. He just couldn't do it. He'd just sit there and he'd talk for an hour straight about this wall. There was no way, he just couldn't cut it down. And so we're like, okay, well, we're just not going to go to the Ramesseum. There's not time. So we went to the cenotaph, and then we went to the chapel tomb. Well, they hit those two spots, and they returned back to the headquarters, the sort of lobby we built for the event. And they're like, well, hey, we're all still here, and there's this one more place we could go to, and anyone want to come along? And everyone went. And they stayed for an hour, another hour, while Philippe gave them the breakdown of the story, inscribed into this wall of the Ramesseum. And I don't know if you noticed this in the video, but he actually has a laser pointer where he can point at the stuff of the wall. And we just did this a couple weeks ago. And the users, when it was finished, they're like, "Are you guys going to do more of these? Because you got to do more of these. This is fantastic." And so I kind of want to contrast that to this. So this is that same chapel tomb on a website. And imagine this is your first exposure to it, as opposed to I'm in the tomb, I'm walking in the tomb, I can lean in, I can see the details, I can see the scale of it. While this is very valuable and this is fantastic, the write-up on this website is great, it does not engage in the same way and is really a great support. So you go there, you get that mental model of what that space is like, and then go read this website. But when you contrast these, it becomes, I think, obvious that we're heading down the VR route. And so, in this notion of, collaboration and such, you got to have meetings, So you get your education, and now it's time to have some meetings to figure out what you're going to do with it. So, meetings, they're just part of the collaborative process. In social VR, you can actually optimize the meeting space for the topic, for the audience, all those things. If you need a quick team huddle, you can make a space that's perfect for that. If you're doing a conference like this and you want a quick breakout session, you can make that. Space matters. Space is important. I mean, if you can just see this. The way they set up like one of our one of the Republican or Democratic conventions, right? There's all this stage work made to make these things look to have this kind of impact, so that space when addressing a group works. And then here's an example of a conference space we made for an event we did a while back. But we also, have these kinds of more informal gatherings. This is a screenshot from one of our user group meetings that we hold every week in Sansar. There's like 40 some odd people in there. There's people out of frame as well. And one thing you'll notice, if you look at it closely, everyone's kind of facing or looking towards, they're kind of in a circle, like rings. and they're facing the guy with his arms out like this with the blue sandals. And what that shows is, and this is subtle but it's important, is within our environments we have spatialized audio with very natural kinds of audio fall off. And so what happens is people gather in the circles, they get around them because he's addressing the group. They gather around in a way so as that audio is as evenly distributed as possible. And what you'll notice in these groups is sometimes people will split off and have a separate little side conversation that doesn't necessarily interfere with the main conversation that's happening off to the side, because we've simulated the way audio behaves more or less in the real world. And natural kinds of group human kind of physicality comes out. You're at a party, there's clusters, so you start to have these clusterings, and you can kind of get a little hint of what's they're saying over there, and then migrate to that other cluster. And it's very intuitive. There's no like selecting what channel you want to listen to or any of that really nerdy stuff that gets in the way. And so you have your meetings and you decide what you're going to design. So design is going to definitely see some benefits in social VR. So in this idea here, we've set up a system such that you can create assets in your tool of choice, easily import those into the system, where then you can have a team get together and critique that work. So in this example, we have a model that's from SolidWorks, and we have users getting together to talk about or review that model, right? Just do a live critique on the spot, like, hey, that needs to be this needs to be that. And that's just on a part, so any data set, any three-dimensional data set will see benefits from this. For instance, we're doing a project right now where we're creating a virtual version of a booth, of a CES-style booth for promotional purposes. And we met with the people. It was just an impromptu meeting. They had the link to the experience. They clicked the link. They're like, hey, meet us in there real quick. And at first we were just talking about the virtual version, but pretty soon, because this booth matches the dimensions and the shape, size, look, feel of the actual physical, real-life booth that they're working on, the conversation very quickly switched from, hey, look at that texture, to, okay, in the real booth, we got to move this thing here and this thing there. And because they were in it for the first time, in there together, you could point, you could see where they're pointing, you could see where they're looking. So all those kinds of body language and social cues come through, because the avatars move like you do. And it feels like you're really in the space. So architecture, those types of things, set design, film sets, game design, and anywhere where you can get into 3D data. And the fact you can be there with other people and see it is really important. And of course, being able to do the edits in real time in VR is helpful as well. So we do have within Sansar the ability to edit layout within VR. So here's a screenshot of that. The tool set is very simplified down. Oh, and one note on that. This is kind of the first time where you have, at least pretty readily available or cheaply available, the opportunity to do, you have a 3D data set that you're viewing through a 3D display that you're manipulating with 3D controllers. If you think about up till now, there was always some kind of 2D projection, a flattening of the data, where you had to do a lot of mental, it's subtle, but translating a mouse on this flat 2D plane of your desk, and you see it on this flat 2D plane of a screen, there are extra little hoops, mental hoops, cognitive hoops you got to jump through. Whereas in this case, I've handed this set of tools with the headset and the controllers to, in one instance, an interior decorator, never worked in a 3D program ever, had never touched Maya, never touched CAD, and nothing. You know, he's a decorator. And just hand him these controls, and in 2 seconds, he's like moving the stuff around, hit publish, and the scene is ready for anyone in the world to come and check out. So, and you know, ultimately, you know, you went to school, you had your meetings, you designed your thing, and now you got to sell it, right? And so, the social VR and, you know, AR are really going to be the next steps in where online shopping and thus, you know, everyone's buying everything online anyway. Just shopping in general is going to go. And so, when social VR allows for a sort of a hybrid kind of approach, you know, where, you know, you go to an Amazon.com and you can do all these searches, you can filter your data set, you can do all this, versus like a retail space, you know, where it's just kind of a fixed thing. There might be some stuff out in the back, you know, back storage that they can pull out for you. But for the most part, what you see is what you get in a retail space. In Amazon, it's all about, well, what do you want? You got to tell us, and we're going to serve it up. And with social VR, you can kind of create these really hybrid kind of things, the kind of a best of both. And in doing so, you know, you can also, because it's social, you can have the fun, you can have finally that it's online, but have that traditional kind of retail experience where you're literally walking around a space. And so, but because it's, you know, virtual, you know, you're freed from the physical constraints. You can create these retail spaces that are a complete embodiment of a brand's voice, vision, you know, its attitude, all those types of things. You can create environments that are highly optimized for the particular type of merchandise that is being sold, you know. So it's going to be engaging in a way that, you know, very few real physical retail spaces are. And, you know, you can imagine here we have an illustration. This is just a screenshot. You can actually see an avatar standing there on the little ramp. But we're like, hey, showroom, right? And so a car showroom where you could configure your car, you know, jump inside and then run a simulation. You know, do I want the V6 or do I want a turbocharged 4-cylinder, right? And, you know, physics, you know, simulations are of adequate fidelity to be able to tell that sort of thing, to give that type of sensation. Some merchandise will work better than others, but that's just an example of this, you know, from this scenario. And you can shop with your friends. And so it's, you know, when you combine, you know, social VR, you know, you're there with your friends, you know, you have this 3D data, you know, and you get a way to really see it, hold it, look at it. It complements very well with, you know, rapid manufacturing, like 3D printing-based manufacturing, or automated clothes manufacture, you know, where, you know, through a VR-enabled interface, you can sit there and very easily customize a merchandise, you know, be that, you know, an article of clothes or some widget for your house. And then, you know, place that order, because it's all connected. You place that order, and then it appears on your doorstep the next day or in the next hour, you know. And then, you know, because we have, you know, when you have a high-fidelity 3D rendering engine, you leverage photogrammetry and 3D scanning, and then all of a sudden you can bring in these real-world items, have them look and feel exactly like the real thing, and so you get a sense of what the thing would be like when it does show up at your doorstep, in a way that, you know, the photo in the web browser just never quite comes across. And, you know, because you're in these spaces, you know, as an avatar, you're going to see a lot of bundling of, I bought the virtual version of a piece of merchandise, and now I'm going to also get one for myself, my real physical self. So you're going to be shopping double duty. You know, a piece of furniture for your virtual apartment where you hang out with your friends from around the world, and then, hey, I want that recliner or that couch for my real life house. And so I'm going to show you a little video here of a study, a little kind of idea, a little scene we put together. Yeah. So let me, that raises a good point, actually. So Sansar, so Sansar, right? We're a social VR platform. We have distribution built in, but we also have monetization. So we have a virtual currency that you buy with your U.S. dollars or euros or whatever you have. Within the system, you trade in Sansar dollars. So the price in the video was a Sansar dollar price. That Sansar dollar can be sold back onto the Sansar dollar exchange, and at that time you get your fiat currency back. So we already have people within the system buying, selling goods. And it's a general approach we've been doing now for a good 10 years or so in Second Life, and so we're moving it into here. So Sansar is available now. You just go to www.sansar.com to download it, try it out. Free to use, free to build. Just import your assets like you would Unity or Unreal or whatever. You lay them out using our editor. It's built right into the client. When you download it, you hit the publish button. When you hit that button, a URL will be created, set up for your experience that you can then, email out to whomever you wish, post it to a social feed, a blog, whatever you want, and anyone in the world can come and join you in that space, so long as they have the client and a Windows PC. Runs on Oculus, the Vive, and desktop mode. So you don't have to have VR to make use of this. In fact, most of our users don't have VR. It's 90% of them don't have VR. Of course, we see much higher engagement amongst users that do have VR. Give it a shot. You guys should jump in there. It's, like I said, free to use, free to build, free to distribute. Yeah, that's it. Any questions?